Coming up to the stage is a first-time performer here. Not a first-time performer here is Sam, a queer, non-binary, breast cancer survivor, and multi-hyphenate creative. Sam Armenta is a force of resilience, wit, and transformation. With roots in blue-collar grit and a passion for storytelling, they fused lived experience, intuitive insight, and hard-won wisdom to build empowering spaces, whether in wellness, the arts, or the queer community. Bold, soulful, and unafraid to challenge norms, they remind us that healing, humor, and radical authenticity can change the world. Indeed, it's probably the only thing that will. Thank you, Sam. Come up to the stage.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah. Hi. Hi. Let me just get ready for you. I'm not used to being on stage without a guitar, so the quiet is the challenge for me. But I hope I can do you proud. All right. Let's give a big hand for all the performers so far. Yeah. And now it's my turn. I have often joked that perhaps I was in a bit of a hurry to come back to Earth before this life, that I needed to get here now, but my body wasn't ready yet. I made a deal with the great beyond that I would just figure it out along the way, and the funny thing is, I've been doing just that since the very beginning. I was born on a crisp October morning in Tucson, Arizona. I didn't cry when I came out, likely due to the fact that I was born with microtia, leading to deafness in my left ear. Surprise. My left ear was deformed into a shape closely resembling a rosebud, eventually blossoming open into the cute little fairy ear you see today. When I was 5, I had extensive hearing tests done to make sure everything was growing in nicely. It was then that a seed was planted in me that would change the way I face my greatest challenges. The doctor of these tests asked the sprightly 5-year-old in front of him, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Of course, I knew the answer. I want to be like Madonna. I want to sing and I want to travel the world. I knew that about myself from the very beginning. The doctor responded by telling me to choose a different dream because I'd be tone deaf. Sparking an undying fire within me, what kind of asshole shatters a little girl's dream like that? It was the first time someone gave me a reason to prove them wrong, a reason to push back against the odds, a reason to just figure it out. By the age of 7, my body had become a battleground of mysterious symptoms. My social skills developed amongst people 4 to 10 times my age as we spent years seeing doctor after doctor and never finding answers as to why my body went to war against itself. All we knew is that my eyes were ground zero. It was a unique experience of childhood, being the youngest one in most of those waiting rooms. And it came as no surprise when I had trouble engaging with kids my own age, since my diction resembled that of a retired grandpa. Between the ages of 7 and 23, I learned to fight against the odds as if my life depended on it, and started taking notes from the elders around me on how not to waste my youth while I was young. For all those years, my world was blurry, painful, and filled with a steroid-induced rage to save my eyes from blindness. In fact, they called me Psycho Sam, which came with a fun little theme song. Psycho Sam, she'll run down the halls and kick you in the balls, Psycho Sam. But I still saw beauty on the days that I could see, drinking it all in, from the lines on aging faces to the leaves on trees in the wind. In the end, I am grateful for the unique experience. It forced me to make peace and friends with myself first. All that time on a bench in the hallways, working ahead or behind my class, waiting to take medication or waiting to be whisked away for another appointment. I was my own best friend first. It wasn't until 23 that I was given a clean bill of health, and I did what anyone would do in my shoes. I went to a music festival. Surprise, I loved it. I loved it so much I made a career out of it. 4 good years later, I woke up one day in excruciating and immobilizing pain, unable to walk. Surprise, it's back, I thought. Coming from a here we go again, hold my beer kind of perspective, we took all the same old tests and all the same old tests came back negative. It turned out to be fibromyalgia. The invisible monster that made pain my shadow and ended up becoming one of my greatest teachers. I eventually found solace and balance and peace within, learning how to distinguish physical pain from emotional anguish and setting myself free from a certain level of suffering in that process. It prompted me to redesign my entire life around my body's needs, moving out of the city life, corporate job, and apartment, and into a converted minivan and seeing where the road took me on a leap of faith. I wanted to find out whether or not I could make it as a van lifer. And surprise, I totally excelled at it. In fact, the 2.5-month road trip I started in 2017 turned into a 6.5-year-long journey, living out of the van with my dog up and down the West Coast from Tucson to Canada. I had created a life based on movement and seasons, playing shows, working as a massage therapist, doing production for music festivals, and a series of random odd jobs we don't have time to get into, from farmhand to life coach. My youth was not to be wasted, and my inner child had some making up to do. After that many years on the road, I had been feeling the pull to unpack and be home for a while. I planned on one more big production before finally signing a lease in LA. The big gig was a 3-month production run in Seattle for the fall of 2022, marking my first official credit as a producer. I had finally climbed into a role that fit like a glove. By this time, I'd become a graduate of my own body science, able to ride the waves of its ebb and flow, tending to its needs and wants. Though I had been experiencing issues in my tissues, which I attributed to stress, but after a while, I felt the intuitive ping to dive deeper. So before I left for Seattle, I had an ultrasound, which led to a biopsy, which led to a phone call the second day on that job. Surprise, it's cancer. I'll never forget that day at work or that call, hiding in a boys' bathroom with my radio still on, looking out the window of the venue at some fall leaves gently escaping the trees of the picturesque Seattle street in Capitol Hill. I remember wanting to drink in something beautiful while listening to my doctor tell me that my whole world was about to fall apart again. Against the doctor's orders, I stayed on and finished the 3-month-long production with gusto and aplomb, knowing not if I would ever work again. Cancer. Breast cancer, stage 3. Cancer becomes your entire world once you get a diagnosis. It becomes every conversation, every text message, everywhere, all of the time. I wouldn't exactly describe it like the elephant in the room, but more like a gothic preteen named Greg that you're ordered to take with you everywhere you go. That's Greg. I joke that I asked the universe for a girlfriend and it gave me cancer. So does that mean I should be keeping my eyes out for a cute little cancer at the next queer astrology event? Maybe I just had to get something off my chest first. Before one begins treatment, there's a few things you have to do prior to starting. For me, this also included finding somewhere to live. And I just have to say, apartment hunting is a little different when you're looking for a viable space you might die in someday. I was lucky enough to find a cute little studio in the heart of Hollywood, of all places. Prior to move-in, I was started on an oral dose of chemo until I could have my port put in for the Red Devil heavy-duty chemo stuff. It's a fairly simple procedure, but I was so tired afterwards and thought I had caught a cold from the hospital where I had the procedure done. Thinking that it was from the come down of a 3-month-long production run and years of being on the road, I chalked it up to adrenal fatigue and allergies, planning a camping trip for the weekend before move-in to rest and reboot. Since I had begun the small dose of oral chemo, I was told I may experience menopause-like symptoms. All I knew was that I did not feel very good. I talked to my doctor, a teledoc, a telenurse, my cancer support center, other survivors, and other people about my symptoms, and they all said the same thing. Menopause is a bitch. You're telling me, okay? I felt like I was fighting for my life, and I couldn't understand how people just go to work on menopause? What? Excuse me? Surprise. It was not menopause. Turns out the port they put in me was contaminated. And that menopause, 2 types of pneumonia, a long-eating bacteria, and sepsis. I surely would have died had I gone camping that weekend. Still, hallucinations and all, I drove myself to the ER that day, 18 days after that procedure. There is a remarkable difference between I could have died and I almost died, that only those lucky enough to be faced with their own mortality can distinguish between. I could have died triggers panic, anxiety, shock, trauma. A could have been, a near miss. But when someone is on their deathbed, facing the long, dark night, it's different. You feel so tired. You feel euphoric. You make peace with everything. You feel the pull of a restful surrender that there is no coming back from. I remember it fondly, for it is where my greatest trauma lives. There I was, alone in a lockdown hospital room in a cardiac ward, looking out at the leaves on the trees from a park nearby, swaying silently from the windy night. I was making my peace. I was so tired. I was negotiating with death for just a few minutes of rest. I had reasoned that the world would be okay never hearing my songs, that my family and friends would live on, that would all be okay without me. I was making my peace. It was surprising. I was making my peace until I thought of my dog. And then I realized, wait a damn minute. I made a promise to that dog. I promised she would never have to live in a world without me in it. Then it all came back to me. All the things I had lived through to get here. But now I'm willing to throw in the towel? I don't think so, okay? I'm not gonna die alone in a cold hospital room in Northridge, California. I am not done yet. Yeah. And in that moment, I chose to anchor into my body and fight against the enticing pull of a restful death. It was then that my condition started to improve. I spent nearly 2 weeks in the hospital and 40 days on a 24-hour antibiotic drip. The day after I finished my antibiotics was my first day of chemo. 6.5 months of chemo, a double mastectomy without reconstruction, and 3 additional months of blast radiation later, I beat cancer. Thank you. The funny thing is, almost dying before almost dying really did lessen the blow of it all. Yeah, turns out chemo was not as hard as sepsis, okay? Surgery wasn't as hard as chemo. And the radiation was the least invasive of them all. None of it was easy. None of it was easy. And I would never wish it on anyone. But pain is no longer my shadow. Now it's grief that occupies the passenger seat. No one really prepares you for what to do after you survive one of the hardest battles a human can go through. Though, I still have the song in my heart that I share with anyone who will listen. And I still have a heart I'd love to share with a beautiful soul I may be lucky enough to call my wife someday. I am here, keeping the promise I made to my dog, who is almost 13 now. There's no instruction manual on how to get a life after you've saved your own. If I'm honest, I'm not so interested in figuring it out ahead of time anymore. I just want to see what happens. And every time I get that anxious ping in my heart beckoning the universe to tell me what's next, I hear the gentle whisper of her reply. It's a surprise. Thank you.